Greetings, peace, and blessings. We are the Mohammeds, the residential tourists, 85 to Africa, living in the after. And we are enjoying a nice morning in our temporary place of residence. And as you can probably get a feel of the serenity, can't really see the fullness of it. However, it is very nice and it's very conducive to be able to come and sit and have good conversation as we tend to do. And we are wanting to bring you in on some of the conversations that we have, sharing of our thoughts with one another as we move forward on this journey, being here on the continent, being in Africa. And sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss, but that's the reality. It's just real. That's just what it is, you know. So you try to find that happy medium. Nonetheless, we want to talk and just kind of share our thoughts and our feelings as we go through this particular journey.
Okay. So while we're doing that, I'm looking for monkeys to come in the background to complete the ambiance.
So, you know, we've been here almost 3 years now. And
On the continent.
yeah, on the continent. Not necessarily Mombasa, Kenya, but as you know, here in Africa. And so for some, like say our mothers, right? Your mother, my mother, they both said this is something they always dreamed about. They always dreamed of. And by the grace of God, they were able to come and live and be here. Right? So what about you? Like, you know, is this a fulfillment of your childhood dreams, or
I've never dreamt about coming to Africa. That was never like the lifetime goal. It was never even a thought. It really wasn't. But thinking about my childhood, either my mom intentionally or unintentionally has always dropped little seeds, little nuggets in our upbringing. I remember we had to watch Roots every time it came on. Every single time. It became like a form of discipline. You cut up, you're gonna watch Roots. And I don't understand it, didn't understand it, but it put a sense of fear, I guess, in a way, as well as an awareness of where we came from. Even though we didn't start with slavery, Roots was just a beginning point. Throughout our house, now we were very poor. We didn't live in the hood, but we were very, very poor. Section 8 was part of our dialogue. That was normal. But in our house, you would see African drums that my mom would buy. She would have African art. We would have African flutes and the piccolo and an African banjo thing. Everything artistic and music, like music art, my mom would always have in the house from Africa, as well as masks. I remember my aunt sent some masks when she visited, I think, Nigeria. We kept that in the house. We've had, Mr. Willow, our wooden statue, had over 25 years now from one of my mom's friends or clients that came back from Africa. And we just kind of just been bringing it with us, passing it down. But I named him Mr. Willow, but he's always had black African artifacts. Books, my mom, all kinds of books. And it's weird because she didn't read. She didn't read like that. But she kept black authors, African folklore, all kinds of books, and black history was real in our house. I used to say my mom was a fake Black Panther. Like she was a wannabe Black Panther. She was shy, so she never went for it, but you wouldn't have known the difference. We did the black fist, the picks with the fist on it. We had all of that growing up. Some of my favorite poets were Black freedom fighters or the Lost Poets and all kinds of stuff. My mom had, 'cause she also went to college while I was like 10 years old. So everything that she was reading in school, I was reading as a child. I would just take it right from her, and we'll be laying in bed reading together. These things I remember, and it led me to have a strong love and appreciation for art. Um, my mom used to take us to the Whitman Theater in Camden, or Freedom Theater. She had me in Freedom Theater. Just everything was always rooted in blackness or African awareness of some sort. So she built this desire for theater and art and poetry and passion and music. She This is how I was raised. This is what we were brought up with. Even my brother, you've seen my brother and my nephews, they got they got the big old drums, and they didn't know how to play. They taught themselves, but this is just something my mom has always kept us around. And so I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, she kind of subconsciously molded me for this day. She trained me and taught me for the love and appreciation of our people way before I had another knowledge. It was her that taught me and my brother this. So even though I've never thought about Africa, she made sure Africa was imprinted on my DNA. So now I'm here, and it's like, hey, we had that growing up. I had that growing up. I knew about this. I seen that. Eh, it's perfect. So the theory of teaching a child in the way you want them to go is real when I think about how my mom raised me. So what about you? Was there anything in your childhood that could have led you to having even a thought to come to Africa today?
Well, I think so. It wasn't, I guess, in my household to that degree as such, although, my mother always would uh, instill in us, the beauty of blackness. She being a dark woman herself and coming up in an era where that was a lot frowned upon, both outside of the community and within the community. And she had to develop this this self appreciation of her beauty as being a black person. And so my siblings are a little darker, especially my older brother. And when we were growing up, that was the most offensive thing you could say to hurt someone's feelings, that you black such and such, which is within our ignorance.
You black African booty
Yeah.
scratcher. What is that?
So my mother corrected me in a way that it taught me a lesson immediately, because that handprint across my face is it's an indelible print in my mind. But that was I will always say that's my first lesson in Black Studies 101. She said, never let me hear you call anyone black in a negative sense. So she instilled in us, and so she always made sure we had uh, material like the Ebony Encyclopedia. We had the other encyclopedia, but we also had the Ebony Encyclopedia as well, that highlighted all of our greatness as black people. But then, of course, as growing up in the era we grew up with, hip hop, and how it was infused in the music, the beauty of blackness, and then within our trends of African medallions, which led for me to be more inquisitive of what these rap artists were saying, and uh, what Africa was really all about. So, of course, if those that may remember Impact Publishing, that always highlighted the different African kings and queens. I think every series that you could imagine that they had and produced. And so I took initiative and I availed myself to make sure that I had a greater understanding, or tried to have a greater understanding, of what it was to be black in America, and our connection to our Africanness as well. I didn't think, however, it wasn't a conscious thought in my mind that I would want to come to Africa. You know, I think it was more of instilling a sense of pride that even though I may not be in Africa, I know that I come from Africa, and I know that that's something for me to be proud of. Because, of course, being a black person in America, it's a constant fight um, to have that sense of pride of being black. It's not in the educational system,
Mm-mm.
you know.
You gotta join the Black History Club
You
if you
have to
want to get
join the
it.
extracurricular club, which I did, which
I did too.
I'm thankful for, because that's when I was exposed to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that was a divine order, and I got my true understanding of blackness. Nonetheless, uh, it wasn't, I would say, a childhood dream, but I think, as you mentioned, it played a part in when the thought arised in our minds and in our spirit. It wasn't nothing to tussle with. It was like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. So, yeah. So I'm grateful for the the precursor, if you will, or the prerequisite that I had and that we both had, and it led our paths.
And coming from a very small town in New Jersey, South Jersey, I used to lay in the grass at my grandmother's house. The airplanes would go by a couple times a day. And I remember just staring up at the airplanes. And I think about this probably every couple days now. I think about how I used to stare at the airplanes and wonder, where do people go?
Hmm.
Where are they going? Where do people go? We never knew about passports. I just knew that I was bigger than my town. And I wanted to be on a plane one day. And I wanted to figure out, where do people go? Because I'm trying to get there. And that was a definite dream of mine, to get on a plane and figure out where people go. And didn't know that I would have this love and passion for meeting people, finding out where people go, for traveling in itself. I just love it. I absolutely love it. And I know that's something that my mom instilled in us, because she loved cruise ships. That was her thing. She wanted to go on a cruise. She'll say, man, let me tell you, you go on a cruise, it'll change your life. You'll never want to sit still anymore. And to this day, I've never been on a cruise. But just the fact that she would go to different countries and come back and tell me about it, that created a desire that I wanted to find out, well, where are we? Where are black people at all over this world? And for me, again, that created the spark and dropped the seed. It's time to see the world. It's time to travel by any means necessary. And that's what we've been doing.
That's what we've been doing, and hopefully, we can continue to do it. I think Africa. I don't know. I don't know if Africa will be, you know, the in my mind and in my thinking. Of course, God knows best when our expiration is going to be. But if I had it my way, I don't know if I had a decision in it, if I would decide for Africa to be that place where I expire. But I think, though, that it's a good coming to Africa first as we venture to explore the globe. It's good as a first step because
Well, it's the first place we lived. We've been
living.
to other
No, of course, I'm
countries.
talking about
Yeah.
right as far as living, and even having that broader thought of traveling abroad. Most times when we did travel abroad, it was just okay. This is just a vacation. No, a part of our actual lifestyle.
Mhm.
You understand? And so it opened the door. It opened the door for me that I can go wherever if I'm able to do so without any feeling of I'm missing something because I hadn't been back to the motherland or the homeland, because this was my first step. This was our first step in our exploration and expanding ourselves across the globe. So
But for me, of course, I want to see more of the world. But if it gets to the point where we're getting a certain age and we need to settle down and just be done,
Mm.
I really, really believe that Kenya is a great choice, a great option. Um, this is where I found my peace and my healing.
Mm.
So I'm really, really loving where we are. Um, I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to see more of the world.
Mm.
But to have that place that we can always come back to, I like Kenya for that.
You know, interesting. I mean, that's. But this is going to sound very interesting, right? And maybe controversial. I don't know, depending. But I think at this point where I can say I see my ending point,
Hmm.
I think that it will be something that will be like our. It will be like a full circle.
You'll be back home, back in the
I
U.S.
think that. I think so. Uh, Not that I would necessarily plan it that way, but I just think that uh, if I would allow my spirit to lead me, it would lead me there. And it not, I mean, you know, we talk about, and I talk about a lot of some of the themes that I do appreciate having lived in America, but not for those. I'm saying that not for that particular reason. I'm saying that mainly because my overall perspective in view of America is that the greater right to it belongs to we as black people because we built it. It would not be what it is were it not for the greatness of us, even in our worst state. And so we have a greater right to it. And I'm always, of course, championing the cause for we as black people. And so I think that may have a lot to do with it. I think that, you know, the job that I am to do, you know, has a lot to do with we as black people in America. But who knows though? I don't really know. But my spirit right now is saying, you know what, if I am to expire, then it may be there. But we don't know. We don't know.
You know, something I always tell my daughter: your home is wherever your mom is, and I believe that. I want her to always know that wherever I'm at, that's your home. But I also feel like that for my mom.
Mm,
My mom resting place is here.
mm,
So I'll always will come back just so I can connect with that energy.
mm-hmm.
So for me now, home is where my mom is.
And I'm glad you said that because I think that that might play a part for me because my
Mhm.
daughter, you
Mhm.
know, she's resting in peace back in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And I know prior to even thinking past that point, you know, it was always like, okay, this is where I'll rest right here, somewhere near her.
Yeah.
But that's not as a forethought, but I think that does play a part in it. At
Yeah.
any rate, this is interesting.
Yeah,
This
we
is
done turned
good.
it into something, something
This is
totally different.
so. This is our conversation, and it's good to be able to relate as such. As you can tell, um, we share overall, for the most part, we share very similar visions as Africa is concerned. But then there are some points where not so much. So that's us in our conversation and discussing what it is that is on our hearts and in our minds. We appreciate you as always for tuning in and checking us out.
And I'm sorry no monkeys came out. I was waiting. I know you guys were as well.
So please don't forget to subscribe. We appreciate the subscription. Continue to uh, subscribe and to like and even share. And we love to hear some of your comments as well. Peace and blessings.